Here we are again in this simple, very simple lesson. We will just explain some main differences between the property binding and the attribute binding. But first, we will need to know what is the difference between the property and the attribute in HTML. As simple as this. The attribute is just some characteristics or some features or you can call it whatever you want to call it. Okay, it's some characteristic, some code we write in HTML, and this code is ported to the DOM so that we can. DOM is the document object model. Okay, so that it can convert and create the corresponding node in the DOM, which will represent that element in the DOM. Okay, so this is the initial state. The attribute is just the initial state, while the property is the characteristic of the node itself. So if you're, for example, there is many things that have one-to-one mapping, like say property or ID. The ID attribute is the same as ID. It's written the same thing. Um, the property is the same like the attribute, and maybe they are the same if you want to set or change the property. You want to change the property of the node in the DOM, you can do it easily. Even you can change the attribute value itself by using set attribute using the DOM from the DOM itself. So let's have an example which can explain it. So we'll have an input, say the type equal num, okay, and value is my val. So when we create that input into the DOM, it will have those initial values. My value, okay, and the type is num. Those are the initial values. So I'm using the value attribute here. So let's see them. Let's see this when we try. Um, let's have a new page here. So here we are. My val, okay. Where did I write it actually? I shouldn't write it here. Okay. Shouldn't write it inside this table. Let's take it outside, away from the table. Okay. Okay, failed successfully. Uh, Compiled successfully. And here is, well, as you see, my val is the initial value which is created. So I need to delete ID equal blah. The nicest or the awesome idea I always use blah. So we have this text box of ID blah, type num, and value is my value. So let's go to the console. Var e our element equal document dot find get by ID blah. The awesome blah. Okay. Okay. That's a blah. So as you can see, there is the element itself, which is inside the DOM. So let's get the value, the get attribute inside this. So I'm sorry. Dot uh, element dot get. Okay, let me get the attribute, which is value, value. Here I'm getting the value of the attribute, which is value, which is my val, okay? My val. This is the value of the attribute itself. Note that till now, if I wrote element dot value, it's the same, my val, okay? Okay. If I got my value, the value itself, now this is the value that changed from the previous one, the core one, the initial one. So this is the property now. What is I'm getting? I'm getting the property value, okay, which is my FFFFF. But the attribute, I have my initial attribute. If I got the value attribute, it is my val still as it is written in the HTML as we see. So as a summary, as a summary, when you are doing or you're changing something, try to deal with the property, not the attributes. But if you have something and you want to change the attribute itself, you can do something like this. Binding, you can use the binding attribute binding and use this call span is I'm accessing the call span and doing the binding attribute. So I'm getting the attribute name and I'm binding it like this, like we saw in the last lesson. If you don't remember it, please go to the last lesson and check it. So this is the difference between attribute binding and property binding, and was the difference between attribute and property in the first place in HTML.